Hi everyone, my name is Ava and I'm an American living in the Netherlands. And today I wanted to tell you about a few things that those darn Americans do that Dutch people think are weird. So just like any place, America is also unique in doing certain things that makes the rest of the world go, huh? And let me tell you, as an American living abroad, I get to hear about these things all the time. People keep asking me, Ava, I've noticed Americans do this. Why do you do that? Well, I can't promise you that I'll answer these questions in this video, but I wanted to share some of these things that I keep hearing over and over, and also things that I've noticed that my partner, my wife, finally getting a little bit more used to saying wife instead of girlfriend. So that's progress, my friends. So these are things that she has also noticed and we've talked about, so let us get into it. The first thing that I wanted to share with you has to do with the American way of conversing. American conversation styles are so interesting to me. Well, actually, as a linguist, I find conversation styles in different cultures just very interesting. There's a lot to say, and each culture does it a little differently. And America is no exception. I've made videos about this, but here's another thing that I have not mentioned before. And that is when you say, "How are you?" in America. First of all, all the Europeans and everybody else in the world is like, what? Why do Americans do that? Why do you say how are you when you don't actually ask the question? I do want to say that there's the how are you when you're sort of passing somebody or when you're like on your way to doing something, and it really just means hello then, and it also has a different intonation. It's more like, how are you? And it's a different intonation. It's also really fast. But then there is the how are you? You know, where you really get it as an interlocutor that is a question. Americans do also use how are you in that way. Isn't that mind-blowing that Americans will ask this question and actually expect a response? It shouldn't be that shocking. You know, Americans are also people. Not all of them are sociopaths. They want to know how you're doing, and in those moments, it is a genuine question. What is interesting is the responses that Americans give in this case. An American is taught that the proper response to how are you is good and how are you. And as much as you might think that this sounds like something you learn in English class, it is very much a thing that people do. I also immediately respond, good, how are you? Like very quickly, I don't even stop to think about it. Now, the thing is, Americans, I find, typically don't mean what they say. Or rather, they say one thing and mean something else. So when an American says, good and how are you? Or I'm doing good. So basically with the word good, they're saying they're doing fine. There is nothing out of the ordinary to report. So keep that in mind, because in the Netherlands, if you say, ja, het gaat goed met me, that means you are like doing well, you know, you're thriving. Things are going good for you. Which is what the word good means. But in America, it doesn't mean that. It means fine, okay, nothing out of the ordinary. Now, if an American responds okay, when they say, I'm doing okay, just like that, where it's supposed to sound really normal, that, my friends, is a cry for help. You need to drop everything and be there for this person because they've admitted to only being okay as opposed to good. That is a big thing in America. That's not a normal thing to say. Whereas in the Netherlands, if I said, yeah, prima, and some people even say, oh, prima hoor, like I'm doing fine. And fine is good enough in the Netherlands, but not in America. In America, you want to be doing good or great. So if you say, I'm great, that means you're doing good. You're thriving. So you see, my friends, in America, we like to up our game a little bit. So we have high expectations so that no matter what we do, we will always come short and be unhappy about it. So the second thing I wanted to talk about is breakfast. Now, breakfast customs around the world can lead to feuds. People are always in debate and argument about what is the best breakfast to eat, or different cultures will find different restrictions on breakfast or different ways of eating breakfast strange. And you know, my opinion on this is like, to each their own, and if I like something, I will not hesitate to adopt it into my own diet, because I am a big foodie. Loving different cultures comes with loving different types of food. But this does not stop the world from sort of comparing breakfast notes with each other. And that also holds true for the Netherlands and the United States. So Americans find Dutch breakfast interesting. Do I find Dutch breakfast interesting? Abso-freaking-lutely. Because for instance, the idea of eating chocolate sprinkles for breakfast seems outrageous and so scandalous. Whereas in America, we do have Pop-Tarts, chocolate chip muffins, chocolate chip pancakes, and cereal, all of these things that are also quite sugary. Oh, and not to mention that we are pretty okay with spreading Nutella on our toast, but when it comes to chocolate sprinkles, oh no, 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 how scandalous. And similarly, in the Netherlands, Dutch people find American breakfast extremely interesting. And the thing I've heard over and over again is, no, not the portions, but yeah, the portions, but surprisingly, the fact that Americans eat potatoes for breakfast. When my wife and I were living in the US and we had people from the Netherlands visit us, well, visit her, so her friends, and we would take them out to brunch. We both, me and my wife, loved getting like scrambled eggs, toast, and home fries. You know, that was just the combination that we loved. And when these friends would go out to brunch with us and they would ask us, hey, what do you like to eat at this place? We would tell them, and then they would be shocked to their very core. They couldn't believe that we were eating potatoes for breakfast. Because in the Netherlands, potatoes are something that Dutch people like to have primarily for dinner. It is part of this typical meal of aardappel, vlees, groente, the AVG meal. That's a thing, which is potatoes, vegetables, and meat. That's like what people think of when they think of like Dutch standard food, other than the mushed and fried stuff. So time after time, every time we went out for brunch, they were Dutch people who would be completely shocked. And only a few of those brave souls actually tried the home fries for breakfast. Now, after moving to the Netherlands, I do have to say that I'm surprised by how shocked people were, because I live in Utrecht pretty centrally, and when I go like out into the city center wandering around, especially on the weekends in the afternoon around lunchtime, I see hordes of Dutch people with fries. So I just think that people are used to what they're used to, and then when things are a little different, it can be a bit shocking at first, and you have to get used to the idea. But I think once you do, it's just a very nice thing. And if you are in the US, I will encourage you to have the home fries for breakfast, because they are really very good. Number 3 has to do with when you go out to eat in the US. And if you are Dutch, you will be shocked by this. And that is when you go to a restaurant and it's time to pay, they will take your credit card away from you. And they will go run the numbers and come back, and then you'll get a check with the tip, portion left blank, and then you have to fill it in. I didn't think this was that weird until I lived in the Netherlands, and I realized it is so much more convenient when they actually come to you and you don't give them your credit card to take with you. They bring the machine to you, so everything is just done very quickly on the spot. So not only is it efficient, it also prevents things like someone copying your credit card numbers. That happens all the time. How have Americans not figured this out yet? Anyway, so every time we have Dutch people in the US, they always get a little surprise where they're like, okay, here's my credit card. I guess I will trust you to return it. Thanks. So now that I've lived in the Netherlands, I do think like there is a better system. Why don't you just bring the machine to us? I mean, aren't we all about customer service in America? So the next couple of things that I wanted to talk about have to do with grocery shopping. Now in the Netherlands, when you go grocery shopping, you typically only grab a few things. You don't plan your meals like for the whole week. You maybe think about your meals like, for the next couple of days. And you go grocery shopping pretty frequently. I personally go 3 to 4 times a week. I know some Dutch people who go every day. They don't find it too much of an inconvenience because there are plenty of grocery stores around you on your way to and from work or when you're just out and about in the city. So that is how things are done here. Now in America, it is very, very different. I never went grocery shopping more than twice a week. And I only did that because I lived in cities where I didn't have a car, and I don't drive, so there's also that. But I didn't have a car, so there's only so much you can carry as one person. But in America, you have these stores like that sell super-sized food items, and it is shocking. So you can buy things in bulk. So these bulk stores are pretty popular, pretty common. I'm talking BJ's, Costco's, the works. And they're definitely more common in suburbia, but they're also to be found in cities when there's space to have them. Because like I said, everything is in bulk, food items, even just everyday things like sunscreen. You don't buy one at these stores. No, no, no. You buy a pack. And I love it because you tend to be able to save money when you get all of these things in bulk. And that is the point of these stores. Also, people who live in the suburbs, maybe Americans have these, big families. That's the traditional idea. And then they can just go do their grocery shopping for the week, save money while doing it. And people are driving anyway, so it's not inconvenient. And then they just load up their cars and they're good for, I don't know, however many weeks. But that is so common in America. Whereas here, I don't even know where I would go to do that if I wanted to. Like if I buy something that's like super sized here at the store, it's like instead of this big, it's this big. Like when I'm talking about shampoo or something. Whereas in America, oh my God, at BJ's, you could get these shampoo bottles that are this big. And then there's like a little, squirty thing on top. What do you call it? Like a nozzle, but like, the one that you push down for like your soaps, but then it's huge. And that's great because it's like relatively cheap and it's huge. You never run out of it. But I don't know if that would fly here in the Netherlands for Dutch people. And Dutch people always find American supersizes totally weird. Now, the next thing that American grocery store shopping involves that Dutch people find weird is the fact that when you are checking out your items, there is a cashier, and that cashier doesn't just check out your items. They also put it in a bag for you. Or sometimes there is a separate person bagging up your groceries. And this is fairly common. I wouldn't say every single shop or grocery store offers it, but it is really very common because they will just scan your item, and instead of giving it to you and leaving you to your own devices, they will just put it in a bag for you. In the Netherlands, that is not the case. This would never fly. I think Dutch people find this very strange, and I know because all those Dutch people who visited us in America, and my wife, when she first moved there, she thought she was so embarrassed. She was like, I felt so bad. They were bagging up my groceries. And I was like, yeah, that's their job. They're happy to do it. They don't want you to put the eggs at the bottom, makes sense. And she was like, no, I can do that myself. I am outraged that they would bag my groceries for me. And the final thing I wanted to talk about was how Americans like to drive everywhere. And that drives the patience of Dutch folks through the roof. Because Dutch people don't understand why Americans need to drive for 5 minutes to buy groceries. Why do they do that? Why do they do that, Ava? They ask, really shocked and surprised and confused. Do Americans not like to use their legs or muscles? Would they just prefer to be sitting the whole time? Well, maybe. But honestly, living in cities, I didn't get the sense that Americans drove everywhere. But my parents now live in suburbia. And I also have friends who have siblings moving out or friends themselves moving out into the suburbs. And then you see why it is that people drive everywhere. And that is because they have no choice. So I was talking to a friend on my recent trip to the US, and his siblings had just moved out to the suburbs. And he was like, yeah, they live near the train station. And that is the plus of them moving there. That's why they chose this location. That's great. But it is a 5-minute drive from their house to the train station. And if they were to walk that would be 40 minutes. And at first I was surprised, but then I remembered all of my experiences in the suburbs, even living in New York City, there's suburbs around it, and it's really not very safe or convenient to walk because you often just see highways and busy roads. And then you can't walk it because it's too dangerous. I do have to say that not everybody hates driving. They do really like it, especially if you grow up driving everywhere. People really get a lot of joy out of it. So I don't want to diminish that. It's not that just because I prefer walking doesn't mean other people should. So I know lots of people who are very happy driving everywhere, and they do like to go outdoors and into the parks where they live and get their exercise and movement that way. So that was what I had to share with you for today. If I left anything out, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below. And as usual, until next time.